All right, everybody. As Keith said, you all know why you're here, and we're here to talk about Simcenter Femap. And what we're going to do first is we didn't have a symposium here last year, so I'm going to start with 2306, and I'm going to just kind of go through it quickly. Then we're going to talk about what was in 2401, and then we're going to talk about even 2406, which actually comes out, barring no disasters, comes out next week. All right, so that's what we're going to do. 2306 though, I'm just going to start with that and go through it pretty quick. I don't really have any demo or anything to do. And I think I might just do all the demo at the end anyways. So here we go. So this actually came out last July. A little bit of Teamcenter integration. And for anybody who's interested in Teamcenter integration, I'm going to go quickly through it over the day. But if you want to talk about it more, just come up to me at some point, or Mary Kate, or during the roundtable later. I have a video I can show, or I can go through some things. We can do a lot of different things with it, but I'm not going to really concentrate on it because I just don't know how many folks are using it here. For 2306, what we did was we actually added an entire, like a bunch of, like we added this thing that Siemens now has, like a bundled PLM XML component. So all of our geometry translators used to be individual things. Now it's all one bundle. Now what was nice about this is it's the same user interface for all of them. It's standard components and they're well maintained, and it's easier for us as development to keep these translators up to date. The other good part though is that we now have a CATIA 6 V6 translator, an Inventor translator, and a Rhino translator. And the CATIA V5 translator is now free. So if you paid for it all those years, sorry, but now it's actually for free. So pre-processing, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but if anybody really wants to talk about rotor dynamics, was anybody using rotor dynamics in the room? I kind of doubted it, so I'm just going to do 2 or 3 slides here. Basically, it's based on a product, SAMSEF rotors. It is a best-in-class and complete rotor dynamics solution. It uses a Simcenter Nastran input file, so basically all you have to do is add the rotor cards, which now Femap will do for you. You can use Enterprise Nastran to run with it, and you can also, and we have dedicated workflows and scenarios and stuff of that nature. So this is all the stuff we added in Femap for it. Again, I'm not really going to go over it very much, but we added 3 new element property types, a couple of rotor dynamics entity types, and 2 new load types for it. So, okay. So then you're going to see me do this because we added a tremendous amount of support for this. Okay. All right. Kind of a cool thing that we did with a very, very old command was a mesh region, was an enhancement to mesh region. It's almost like one of the original Femap commands for meshing. So previously in 2301, if you picked 5 through 10 on the one side and 141 through 171 in any order, you would get that messed up junk at the bottom just because it was relying on numbering. In 2306, if you basically box pick both those regions, then you just get it to properly fill in that region. So you can think of it this way: if you have that starting model and there's no geometry here, you basically could just pick each side, and what you'll get is those filled in, and you actually get to select the number of elements between those. They do have to be the same on both sides, though. We're not doing anything crazy yet, like remeshing one side to match the other, but that's something we could theoretically do. And then, if we did the same thing and kind of went across the middle, you could fill that in. And if you saw this is like a bumpy piece of geometry, like a floor panel. So it doesn't have to be flat, doesn't have to be anything. So we just go through a lot to make that better. Just some performance improvements. We added all the data structures. In 2301, we had something called unified graphics. So we added a bunch of new great data structures in 2306 just to do the other entity types, and I'll get to more of that later. And then, we did improve dynamic rotation, like in larger models, which essentially had like one property defined for each element in the model, which you can actually get to pretty easy with the layup builder now, but we'll get into that later. But we basically made a 6 to 8 times improvement in dynamic rotation. So, so that was pretty significant. So if you got a lot of properties in your model compared to your elements, you should see some significant improvements. Again, I'm not going to go real into this, but we did add 5 new analysis types for rotordynamics. As you can see, but they're only for Simcenter Nastran right now. And again, they're all solution 414. And then the one on the back end basically kind of tells you what it is, like whether it's like linear statics or modes, complex modes, harmonic response or transient response. So basically, you just kind of have that going on. And again, I'm not going to go again. We spent a tremendous amount of time. Mary Kate sitting next to me was part of the development team that did all this, and we had 3 people working full time on it, and we implemented the whole thing in 6 months. So, and again, okay. Something else cool we did, if you're using any of our solution 402 or 401, the first one we did was we did there was a couple different dialog boxes that you could go into, and they were large and they were complex. And this is our nonlinear kinematics, our multi-step nonlinear kinematic solver. So what we ended up doing was tabbing it, basically. So now each section just on a tab, so it's a lot easier to find stuff. We also added a number of new things in there and changed some defaults and that type of thing. For anybody doing response spectrum, response spectrum application, Simcenter Nastran kind of added a new way to do this. Basically, so now there's both a large mass method and a relative method. And then along with that, there's now a bunch of modal combination methods that we added. We actually added those in 2301 just at the last second, but then we added a couple more, and the ability to do the relative method there for the response spectrum application. It's actually an easier way to do response spectrum application than before. So, you might find that useful. And it uses a lot less cards and that type of thing. But again, that was only for Simcenter Nastran. If you're using MSC Nastran and they did something similar, let us know, and we can always look into adding something like that. Yeah, that's good. Maybe something that somebody asked for, because it was probably a PR. We added support to right out of 0 for stiffness values for spring damper properties, so K values on a P bush, as this is viable for these solvers. I think some people might have had models in them. We were failing. Now we're not. So as a 2301, if you're using anything for Abacus, you're going to see we have incrementally added stuff to make it better. This was sort of just supporting more cards like NSET, LSET, deload, and some other things, but I'm not really going to get too much into that. Bit of a quality of life thing that we did for when you're if you've chosen an analysis program and analysis type, we now show you what that's going to be. So hey, I'm doing a modal frequency response. A direct frequency response. If it's direct, if it's chosen as direct somewhere in the analysis set, it'll show you that it's 108. If it's chosen as modal in the analysis, it'll tell you for sure that you're doing a 111. And we did that for all of our supported analysis programs. Again, just some quality of life there. Some post processing. We now support the HDF5 file. So we support Siemens version of it, which is actually called the SCD5. And one of the things, again, if you were going to use rotordynamics ever, the only type of output that Femap can read is from the HDF5 for that, because it actually puts it out in a strange format. And for whatever reason, they decided not to put it out in the OP2. Who knows? But then we actually do support the HDF5 for MSC Nastran as well now. And you have to attach to them instead of importing. But then once you're attached, you can always just use that save to model option in there. Okay. We have complex options for results and Campbell diagrams if you're doing motor dynamics. Command Finder, hopefully if you've been using a newer version of Femap, you've been taking advantage of this. So the initial implementation was in 2301, and it basically, you needed to type something that was in a command name in order for it to do anything. So what we did for 2306 is we just started adding some phrases and keywords that are known in other products. So if you type in like equivalence grids, because you've been a long time Patreon user, it'll tell you that you want to go to tools check coincident nodes. So I mean that's the type of thing. So and we've been adding more keywords like that from places. And the other thing too is that again, initially, if it was not in the command, if it was not in the menu structure, it just wouldn't find it. So now it can actually find keywords and items in toolboxes. And if it does find that, it'll kind of bring it up and pulsate for you and be like, hey, look at me. This is what you want to be doing. Add a little bit about, hey, do you want to help improve the Femap experience? Most people decline, but if you agree, that's terrific. And there's actually two different things. There's one that's kind of just us for Femap, and then there's a larger one for Siemens. Again, a lot of your organizations probably just won't even let you do this, but if they do and you want to help out, that'd be great. And then just new API functionality for our new stuff. And then a couple of things that were in there that we had not. Sometimes we add functionality in Femap and then don't add the equivalent API call to do it. So you can see like FE ruled surface 2 and mesh surface, mesh size surface 2. Those certainly have to, to do with that. Yeah. Let me just move to my other presentations here. So let me just make sure. Yeah. All right. 2401. Let's get back up here. All right. So this one we released really in February, very early February of this year. And again, just so everybody knows, with the numbering scheme, the first two numbers are the year, and the second two numbers are the month, or as close to the month as we can get. We tried to bring it out in January. We had an issue, so we had to wait till like February 5th, whatever. And then we actually, it says plan there, but we also already brought out 2401 MP1. If you have not moved to 2401, and you're not ready to go to 2406 for some reason, you absolutely have to install 2401 MP1. Don't use 2401 now, because it had a real wacky issue with some neutral file stuff that has been addressed. In fact, if you did, and this is something I want to mention, if you did go to 2401 and you have 2401 models, you'll notice that you're going to, and then you go to 2401 MP1, you're actually going to see a neutral file conversion. And there was just nothing we could do about it. It was the only way to make sure that your models were good moving forward. So so if you haven't moved to 2401, skip it, go directly to 2401 MP1. Or if you want, you can even go to 2406, like especially if you're switching later on, like, it's say September, because then there'll be an MP1 for that. But okay. A little bit with the managed environments, again, in Femap, something happened, accelerator. We couldn't use the word accelerator share anymore, so it became Teamcenter Share. This is a very lightweight kind of collaboration platform. So we just had to change all the names and the names of the toolbars and that type of thing. Not a big deal. In geometry, we just added a little add matching holes option on the pick menu for curves. So basically, it'll just grab all the holes of the same size. You could already kind of do this, kind of in a more advanced way, but this is just one quick pick where then you just pick, a couple of different ones, and then you can find the holes of the same size. So not bad at all, especially in terms of, getting rid of a lot of holes quickly of a particular size. The layup builder. Andrew Jabola and I are going to go over this quite in a good bit of depth in the next session. The composites and FiberSim integration thing, but I will tell you what this is. So this is a pane, like one of our dockable panes. You can either just make a new layup stack. You can load the stack from existing layups, or the really neat thing is the attached composites HDF5 file. We were going to say FiberSim file, but we might attach a different type of file later. So we just didn't want to have to change that. Right now, all it does is a FiberSim file, but it actually reads the data out of an HDF5 file from FiberSim, and I'll demo. We're going to demo that in the next session, so I'm just going to kind of go past that. There's once you have the stack, you can save it. You can copy paste you can copy to the clipboard. You can send this data to Excel. You can copy some of it in here. There's a number of options that we have. So depending on if you're using HDF5 file or you're doing layup creation in like kind of a more manual manner, there are kind of two different tabs in here that you can pick. And what you can actually do with these, a lot of times, if you just leave it as the defaults, you're going to get the most properties automatically, most layups and properties that automatically created as it can make. It's just gonna have at it. It's gonna take everything that you've defined. It's gonna use all those values to the T and do that for you. So basically, what these options do in a lot of ways are just they give you the ability to make less layups and properties on automatically. But again, this is a totally different way to think about making layups in Femap. Hopefully, if you've made it to 2021.2 or 2022.1, you've seen our new layup manager, which basically allowed you to start using, picking layups, ply materials, that type of thing. And again, I think Andrew's going to go over some of that during his session, so I'm not really going to get much more into that. But this basically, what you do is you define the ply stack up. Then you can, you can add items to the top. You can fill them out however you want, copy, paste. You can do whatever you might want. And then, once they're in here, you can move them up and down. You can show the fiber directions. So just at any time, you can just show the selected elements for a particular row. You can outline the selected elements, or again, you can show the ply fiber direction. You can preview the element layup itself, and that'll actually show you our layup viewer with all of the with the layup that will be created for that particular element. So at any time, if you just want to see, hey, what's going to happen at that particular element, you can just use that preview button right there. Oh yeah, sorry, and it'll bring that up. And then you can just basically select rows with an element. So again, you can just pick an element, and it'll show you what ones it's going to do. So again, what this does is it takes a little bit more time up front, but then what it can do is it can just automatically create all your plies and layups, all your layups and corresponding properties automatically for you. If you're using the composites HDF5 file, you can show the component, you can outline the component, or again, you can show the fiber direction. That's kind of what they look like in there, whether you're looking at the component, outline it, or apply fiber direction, kind of zoomed in for a particular thing. It's really neat, and you'll see what's going on. If you're using the composites HDF5 file, it's got all the data it needs. And then Femap actually, what you can have Femap do based on that data is just automatically select which elements you want to be associated with particular, FiberSim data. And it figures that all out on the back end, and it does it, and then it uses those options we specified in order to figure out what's going on, what it needs to do. But at this point, we still have not made anything yet. What you can do, though, is that, essentially, you can, you can also turn off, you can turn on some additional columns like failure theory and global ply. Those are off by default. And if you're, I just have to ask, is anybody in the room using global plies? Sometimes. Okay. But I mean, so that's your normal workflow though? Okay. I just want to make sure. Because we kind of de-emphasize global plies, but we have every ability to re-emphasize them or bring them back to their full glory. There's just they're just not shown by default, but that's in this tool. That's all. So yeah. So okay. Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I was talking about using global plies to make an actual pcomp G. Okay, sorry. Where you have one defined for every for every ply, like you need to have. So, okay. But no, all right, that's good info. The other thing you could do at any time, if you just kind of want to try some different things, you could just drop a ply here and just have it make you new ones if you want, or you can drop any number of them. You can just turn them on and off. And again, everything on the back end is going to be made automatically. You know, you can enter your angles, you can pick one direction, and then you can kind of set an option there, and it's just going to use it for all plies. And even if it was defined, but even if you had material angle defined before or material orientation defined before, this will just override that as it makes the plies. So again, you know, it's really just trying to help you out. Entity selection, you're either picking elements, surfaces, and it's just grabbing the elements on those surfaces, or a group. So you can do that. And for the entity selection, just to, you know, the one trick to it is that you actually just have to click on a row or click on a number of rows, and then right mouse click and just and pick which way you want to select. And that's the way that you can do manual selection of entities. Again, with it, when you're using the HDF5 file, there's just a whole way for it to automatically pick. But again, on the back end, you can just have it do that. And then again, when you're using the HDF5 file, you'll see it just has like from composites HDF5 instead of you picking one from the composites HDF5 for the thickness, for the directions, etc. So you think you have it all ready and all that, then you can actually just there's an icon to check for errors. And what it'll do is when you click that, it'll bring up this errors column at the bottom, you know, at the end. And if you do have any errors, it'll show them in red. And then if you hover over that red cell, it'll give you a tooltip and tell you what's wrong. Like, hey, you have an invalid material, or hey, you have an invalid thickness, which in those two cases means you didn't assign one. You know, that's what's invalid about it. But there's also some checking that could be done. You know, there are some other things, some other errors you can have. Again, so yeah, once you yeah. So then once you get done with all that, then you can click this last button, and I'll just show it to you. Oops, where is it? Sorry, that guy right at the bottom at the end, and that's the build layups. And once you click that, that's when it'll basically start, you know, that's when the magic happens, and it starts just doing everything and making them automatically for you. It will prompt you with, hey, I'm about to make this many for you. So if it's like, hey, if it's going to make you 200,000 ply, you know, layups for 200,000 elements, maybe you want to go change some of those options, you know, that we talked about in that other diagram. I'm actually going to show a demo of add plies to mesh, so I'm just going to kind of just glaze over that. We did add support for incompressible fluid surface. This is what you can do to actually calculate sloshing modes. So we basically added a new option to the M fluid. So now we have this incompressible fluid surface. This was new functionality for Nastran, Simcenter Nastran at either 2306 or 2312. So it was kind of brand new functionality, but it does allow you to calculate sloshing modes, and it'll actually automatically it will actually automatically create a input file of the plot only elements of the actual free surface of the incompressible fluid surface that you can read in, and then we can do post processing on. Yep, and those are just some options for there. So you can have something like a structure, and this is typical. You'd have your structure made of plate elements, your fluid would be solid elements, and then you'd have a fluid-free surface region in there. That's the region that you're defining with the region, is the top of the solid elements. Okay. Meshing, just if you've used it, hopefully everybody's been using the body mesher that we implemented in 2022.1 or 2021.2, I forget. But anyways, whether you're using the mesh bodies command or mesh geometry surface, this is more for when you're using mesh geometry surface. If you have that surface interior mesh growth turned on, basically, and then you just go into the old kind of meshing command. You say, hey, I want to use the body on mesher. then it will honor that growth ratio for you in both triangles and quads, because it didn't do that. A very big thing here. This is unified graphics architecture. This is where we're moving to. Right now, Femap has 3 different pipelines. We have original OpenGL, performance graphics, and now our new UGA. So, and basically, if anybody's been using Femap for a while, you've turned on best possible or performance graphics, or had to turn it off to see something. It's 2 different pipelines. We've maintained these 2 different pipelines for a long time. Certain things worked in OGL, but couldn't work in performance graphics for whatever reason. You know, there they are down at the bottom there: line style, line width, fill style, transparency, that type of stuff. So you kind of had to turn that off, and even some stuff never made it into performance graphics, like beam cross sections. As soon as unified architecture is ready, which again we started in 2301, this is a multi-release effort. There will only be a single pipeline once implemented, and it will also be so much easier for us on the Femap end to add support for new things to it. It's completely re-architected in a way that makes it just so much easier for us to add new things. It just took a lot on the back end to get it all ready for that type of thing. And again, once it's done, performance graphics and original OpenGL will be removed. So for 2401, what we did was we actually added this button in here. So if something's not working in the unified graphics architecture, you can just turn it off and just have it do it the old way. And you can actually see what's supported there. So coordinate systems, all geometry, mesh points, geometric loads, geometric constraints, and the thing we added for 2401 was nodes. So any way that you could view a node before in 2401, you should be able to see the same thing. If you notice anything different in terms of just the way it's being shown, let us know. And you can always if you need to see it the other way, you can just come in here, push this button, and just turn off that nodes option. So again, this is what's currently supported with UGA, and we'll get into a tiny bit more about that on the back end. For whatever reason, if you were looking at an analysis set with the entity editor, we showed you basically nothing. We literally just gave you no information for whatever reason. It just didn't fill anything. So now at least you're getting, at least, hey, what solver is it? What analysis type? What results destination? And if you have the portion of model to write on, which is probably the most important part, especially if that's something that you use, which we know folks do. For normal modes and modal frequency response, that's where you can use these incompressible fluids. And again, here's where you can get your sloshing modes made for it makes for a very nice picture. And there's a ton of options in here. We're not going to go through them, but again, it's system modes. And when you're doing a modal frequency response, so 2 options. This is where you can turn it on. It's just under options. It's got its own category because we couldn't really fit it in everywhere, because you'll see there are all these different parameters for it. And this is, there's all these fluid structure interaction parameters that you can set and options. So just a number of things. So same thing we did for solution 402. We did it for solution 401, where we tabbed the dialog box instead, just to make it more palatable, easier to find things, that type of thing. Oh, and we also added both a default tab and a default all tab. So you can basically just get the defaults back for a single tab or the whole dialog box at once. So again, it's just a way, help you do a sanity check a little bit. And then just some new options that we did for solution 401 and 402. Again, I don't know how much people are using Abacus, but we did some work to try to make it better for after you've imported, like if somebody handed you an Abacus file and you imported it and then you wanted to turn it into something in Femap. Essentially, if you want to keep it Abacus, there's a concept in Abacus of having an initial step and then steps after that. Essentially, the initial step does not contain a whole lot of information. It's the actual steps themselves. But by doing this, we actually added a tremendous amount of capability to be able to change what you're getting for each step in Abacus. So you can actually now just do that for each step, and just know that when you make a new one, you'll always get step one automatically created for you. But then you can have as many as you want. You can do different output requests. You can do things of that nature. So yeah, I'm not going to go through all this. We didn't really change anything on that front. Really, the only thing we did for post-processing for 2401 was the ability to read in plot only elements and then actually do and then do plot EL elements, and then be able to actually display results on them. Yep, for the command finder, just added a whole level, like a whole different level of functionality to it. And now everything comes up. You can get the help on it now instead of just going to the command and having to use the help. It supports custom tools and user tools. There's actually a hyperlink that allows you to search online for what you're looking for. Again, it's really just trying to make everything better for you, and improve the layout, that type of thing. If you've ever had to change your licensing type in Femap and had to use the Go star.batch files like Go dongle or Go network or Go demo or whatever, you don't have to do that anymore. There's now a help manage licensing command. So it just brings this up. It also gives you a tremendous amount more info about like what's going on for your particular license type, like whether if you have an environment variables set, something of that nature, just so you know. If it's working, at the top. Also, if it's working, at least you get a green circle at the top, and or if it's not, hey, you get a red one. You can hit connect, but there's also some other options in here like that. You can browse to a license file location, but the little star here, the star is very important, the asterisk, because what that will do, and we found this even with our servers at Siemens, which have typically always been kind of open, to us and just kind of easy to use. What this will do is this will generate a fully qualified domain name, which could be very different than the alias that you've been using, the alias. This will actually just tell you what the actual machine name is, which sometimes can really help. Because we had one set up for us that all of a sudden just stopped working one day, and the only way to get around it was to start using the fully qualified domain name. So, yeah, yep, you'll get the fully qualified domain name. So this is brand new for 2401. Yes, absolutely, brand new for 2401. So just and then you can still go to help about, and you'll still see all the same information. Don't worry about that. And as we move forward, those license types on the left, hopefully will start to shrink down. Like the Digital River, that's kind of the old subscription. The Dex is the new subscription, that type of thing. We also have a bundled product, which we can talk about, later, which allows you to run both Femap or Simcenter 3D. One license to rule them all. So basically, you can basically do both, with one license. So you do have to set some stuff for the bundle, but that's okay. But that's relatively new. So yeah, this is actually a lot more helpful. It's a lot easier to use. And again, if you want to change, you don't have to shut down Femap and use a go.bat file. And these are just some things. Yeah. Okay. All right. One more of those, and it's not very long, because you're going to see why. All right. Okay. So 2406, you're the first people who are seeing this. So it comes out next week, hopefully, again. So 24, it was a very, very short release cycle. We had to do it to get on to the same release cycle as our brethren in Siemens, or simulation and test software at Siemens DI. Did a lot on the Teamcenter front. Again, I'm not really going to go through all this, but we have a bunch of new dialog boxes that actually work better, a lot more functionality in them. This import of the JT assembly, which again, if somebody's ever tried to import a JT shattered assembly, or sorry, a shattered JT assembly. This might be very helpful to you. And the big thing on the Teamcenter front is the ability to create an item directly from within Femap instead of having to go over to the rich application client or rack. That's still how Femap deals with Teamcenter, but we will be working with the active workspace at some point in the future here. Geometry, we added edge replace. I'm actually going to show you, well, here, I'll just kind of show you what this does. And whether your geometry is non-manifold added together or completely free or completely whatever, essentially you can take a look here at the original geometry, you select a curve, the second selected curve, and basically it just either does a full match, a partial match, or an edge aligned. All right, so if you have little gaps in your model all over the place or whatever, and you need to do this, it'll help you do. It'll certainly help you do that. And if it's meshed, it'll remesh if it needs to. Again, it'll update if it needs to break non-manifolded add things and rebuild them. It's just really great functionality. And here's just kind of the opposite. Now, just remember, if you're using partial, you might get something. It might not quite work as you expect, but then you can just use another tool in the meshing toolbox to kind of move that back down to where you think it belongs, or where you might want it to belong. But we're probably, and again, this was a first crack at this, so we're certainly going to add some functionality to this tool. But it should be pretty helpful, and I'm going to demo that one for you. Just so you know, we added support for R rod and R bar. So we basically just added two tabs. So if you have older models, or well, especially legacy models, you might have these things all over the place. And we were just changing those into RB2s mostly. So essentially we have full support for R rod and R bar. So okay. So, and I know that people have asked for this particular functionality at this particular location before. Just a couple things on the layup builder. Just one of those options that we didn't have because it was making so many properties. We found that to actually be able to visualize it, typically what you'd want to do is just randomize them. So basically, you added an option there. And a lot of times when you're making things, you want to offset to the bottom surface and maybe add your offset in to go to your particular location. So those weren't in there before, so those are going to be in 2406. So that if those are important and you haven't moved to 2401, maybe hold on, because or Andrew actually wrote some. Andrew Jabola here actually wrote some APIs to do some stuff. For the longest time, we had an auto create definition for loads, but we did not have it for constraints. Now we do. So if you've read in an input file. And basically, you just kind of want to group all the like ones together. So if it has the same constrained degrees of freedom, same nodal output coordinate system, and if it has a non-zero value, if it's the same, it'll automatically make definitions for you. And we also did a little bit of back-end work on the load, on the same command for loads to improve the performance a little bit. But we didn't change any of the calculations or anything. Just added this, just a spacing option to just use existing spacing. So you don't need to know the biasing. If it was already biasing on something, we just now have a use existing spacing option. So that should be very helpful, especially if the model's been given to you from someone else, or you saved it and you don't have those current settings anymore. So it just basically just uses what's already set on that, whether using increase, decrease, set number, set size. It just uses whatever was set currently. A little bit on the just added 3 new options for that sloshing stuff I mentioned, the sloshing mode stuff I mentioned earlier. And then those other 2 things are for rotordynamics. So you can now have the kinematic joints, which we supported before for solution 402, and then param weight mass. I'm a little surprised that wasn't in there before, but who knows? Kind of hard to say. And then we added a little bit to Abacus. We just added this, as you make new output sets, as you make new steps, we just added this option that will be turned on by default, which is to just inherit the output requests from the previous step as you make them. And maybe that's something we should do for Nastran as well. Maybe that would be helpful. There's a couple of things we can talk about on that a little later. And in ANSYS, our new translator was throwing out so many error messages, it was driving people crazy. We changed those for the ones that were not really errors, but just kind of unimportant things because we were skipping. We just changed them to warnings, consolidated them, and we're all good there. Post-processing. Oh, so now you can actually just have your text stay stationary in a view, but have the pointer move in 3D model space. I mean, this seems like a novel concept considering that if you were in position model, it always worked like this before. You just didn't have the ability to do both at the same time. So this is actually kind of, again, just a little quality of life. So you can just see as you would rotate a model like that, from there, that leader, that pointer, whatever you want to call it, is just going to automatically follow it around, and it does it dynamically. So also, we now import arrow box deformations from the Simcenter Nastran.op2 file. At some point, they added that. Again, we're still only reading the center of the box location, not the corners, but we might be doing that later, but we'll kind of get into that. And then just one last thing on the command finder, if you hit Alt-Q, it'll just take you up there so you don't have to mouse travel. And then in manage Femap licensing, it was one button before show modules and show users. Somebody was just like, just put 2 buttons. So we did. And the other thing too, just on this is a bunch of customers started having heartbeat issues with FlexLM, like they were losing the heartbeat from the server. So we did a ton of back-end work to figure out a number of these issues. So these type of things should be addressed. And then some API. Yeah, well, that's all well and good, but that we had that in Help About for years. Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, so, but yeah, okay, great. So here, I want to show you this. I just wanted to show you a few things now. So I'm just going to do. Actually, I'm going to just do a little feature removal here. I'm going to get rid of the blends. I'm going to put in a limit. Oops, limit size 0.3 here. Just going to pick this, get rid of my blends. Hopefully everybody's seen the blend preview thing before, so you can just do that. You can basically just pick one cell, get rid of blends. Obviously, they don't all come off that easy all the time. But it's not. We're not going to really talk about it in this. But we did do a tremendous amount of work to remove blends, and we have a number of kind of tricks to get rid of them as well now. So, all right. So then it's going to do mid-surface automatic on this guy. And I know I have a thicker one up here just because I do. And we're going to combine our mid-surfaces. Okay. Okay. There we go. All right. And we're just going to turn off our thing. Okay. So now this is where we're going to use our new edge replace command. We're going to come in here and we're just going to go to edge replace, and we're going to do a full we're just going to be doing full replacements here. So we can just pick this one and move it to here, or we could do the opposite. I just did that one. I know I have a couple of these down here. Okay, so I can just be like, hey, I want to move this one to here. And this is all non-manifold adding together. So every single thing it's doing, it basically is keeping all this, it's keeping everything together. All right. This is a new command. You could do this by picking points one at a time, and it would all work. It all would have worked before. Yeah, but but yeah, 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 yeah. If one of the curves was slightly different, you could get really hosed. Now, one of the things too here is that you can do is you can also come in here and do the toggle entity locator. So let's just say we wanted to see some, hey, let's find some small surfaces by area. Let's do is it 0.05, I think. Find me a bunch. Okay, yeah, that might have been too big. So, but essentially, what I could do is I could come in here now, and again, I can just all these little areas. I can just come in here, and what we're going to do moving forward with this too is, again, we just kind of had to get it implemented, you know, as a start. But you could just go manually join things, but we're going to have a way to hopefully do some sort of auto find, auto join type of thing based on probably some sort of tolerance that's in there. Again, though, some of these are a little tough to find. Okay. Oh yes. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Just an absolute mess in here. Okay. So there to there, and then there to there. And again, it's moving everything it needs to move. Even if it was meshed, it would be remeshing. It would be doing all that good stuff for you. So it would take care of what? Oh yeah, yeah. What do you mean? Oh, oh, I see. I see what you mean. Okay, I see. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, anyways, that's the edge. That's the edge. That's edge replace. So that's really just neat stuff. Yeah. So the person who did most of that coding is sitting to the left of Mary Kate. So okay. Couple other things. Oh, yeah. Just I mean, here's just an example of that auto create definitions. I mean, there's 2,600 things here, and you just do auto create definition, and just that quick, it made them all. And now, so everything that's the same. Let me just come down here and like find oops, I probably wanted to do this. Yeah. So all those, I mean, essentially what I did here was create a model with every possible combination in 10 different output coordinate systems, and then also did something where I did a bunch of non-zero numbers. So, but I mean, I was able to do all those in it. It just makes you definitions. So so in this case, oh no, there's no grid selection. It just does it. It just does it wholesale. Yeah, definitions. All the ones that are the same. So it's just one command. You could always just make your own definitions by picking the individual ones, but now you can just auto make them. Again, we've had this for loads for a very long time. We just never did it for constraints. Yeah, yes, all fully fixed nodes. Yes, that's it. There's three criteria. If it has the same output coordinate system, the same degrees of freedom constrained, and if in the same non-zero value, if they're non-zero constraints, it'll put all of those together or group all of those together. So then if you need to do a bulk change of them, say like all your fixed ones in your model that are in global rectangular, if you just needed to switch them all in a model for some reason, you could. I don't know how often that's going to happen, but it was just one of those things where we had it for loads, now we have it for constraints, and we had a real clever intern. So, so that's really what it was. Okay, something that you can also do now for composite for laminates is we added this model laminates, and we added add plies to mesh. This might be very helpful to people. Because basically what you can do is you can just pick whatever you need here, whatever elements you want, like a zone mesh, like this zone. I know I'm going to add a new ply here. So I can now add a ply. I can add one of my ply materials. Again, those things that we started supporting, kind of the reason we went away from global plies, but again, we can get back to that. But layups, you can add a whole layup in here if we want. I'm just going to add a single ply. Not steel, but okay. I don't know why it's in here. 45. I'm adding one ply to each layup on each element I selected. So what you're going to see is I had three plies before here. Sorry, I had 3 layups and 3 properties. Now I have 6. Yes. And it automatically did that for me. So we probably should I was going to say we probably should update the title, but we can't because the title has nothing to do with how many are actually in there. Those were just titled by somebody else. But sure did. Yes. Yeah, here, I'll show it to you again. That's under model, laminates, add plies to mesh. And that was new for 2401. So, okay, yeah. So, yeah, add plies to mesh. This should save everybody a little bit of manual work, because this was this was a giant pain in the neck before. Yeah, absolutely. And so there's other options there other than adding ply. You could add a whole layup if you felt like it. Yeah, you can add a pack of plies. You can add them to the bottom, above a particular global ply, below a particular global ply. We should probably just put, well, yeah, you kind of have to use global ply and below global ply, otherwise you wouldn't really know. But again, top, bottom, ply material is still just going to add one, and we don't have any specified. But if I just wanted to add the whole layup to it, I could add a whole layup in there too. So yeah, if you had 5 plies in basically an add to, it would do that for you. Okay. All right. Just so you can kind of see just what the sloshing kind of looks like. I'm not really going to go into it here, but you can kind of just see, basically again, here would have been, this was like, 2 tanks, very spacecraft oriented type stuff. But again, you could also use it for other things. Just anything with a fuel tank essentially. But again, down here is solid mesh. The thing is actually meshed with shell mesh. And then again, you create a region, an incompressible fluid region on the free surface of your fluid. If there is one, if it's fully filled up or whatever, there's actually an option for that on the thing itself. Okay. Yeah, and then what was that? Oh, those were just exaggerated translations. There. Yeah, those were just exaggerated modal those were just translations of the free surface, of just the modal free surface. Those you shouldn't. There was no stresses being shown there. So I do not think it. I don't think it works that way. No, it's much more for tanks. Yes, absolutely. So just and then the one last one, just so you can just use existing spacing, and just so everybody knows, we just with what kind of went on here, we did a bunch of stuff to make this better. If you just want to use existing space, well, here let's do something. Hold on. Let me set my spacing on. Yeah, here, I'll just do it over here instead. Okay, let's just go to like increase, use existing spacing. And you can just see that now I don't have to respecify any type of biasing I might have. I mean, I certainly can, go back to, using the pick location and that type of thing, but. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you didn't set the biasing to what it was before, it would set it back to space. It would set it back to spacing, or equals. It would set it back to equal spacing unless you were using one of these spacing options. So if you were set to equal, like yes. So if I'm just set to equal here, and I were to change that one, you see how it just shot it back to equal. So now it just keeps the spacing. Now, is Glenn Andrew in here? Yes, that's you. Yeah, we added that for you, pal. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, so there it is. Yes, we specifically did do that for you because you asked. Yes. So don't say we never did anything. So there you go. All right, and that's kind of and that's kind of what I wanted to show from there. And again, Andrew's going to show a good bit of what we did on the composites front, and I'm going to also show the FiberSim integration as soon as he's done there.